could see it coming. It was inevitable. And you were helpless to do anything about it.
Over the last 100 years, we've seen this happen time and time again with communities, rural communities all over Canada. You think we'd have it right by now, but obviously we don't.
Someone from the outside looking in might think there's nothing here to keep it alive.
People will fight harder to keep something than they will to fight for something new.
If there's someone who has the will to do something and it's of value and important, it can be done.
Saskatchewan. Once the fastest growing province in the country, this breadbasket of Canada began its stagnation during the Great Depression. Saskatchewan used to measure its success in the growth of its small towns. But, nearly 100 years later, these relics, once the heart of the province, are slowly fading away. Coronach. Founded in 1926, the town sits in the rolling hills of South Saskatchewan, with the nearest city being a 2-hour drive away. Currently, just over 600 people call this remote place home.
I worked in Saskatoon after university, then met my husband, who was also going to school up there. And then, when he graduated, his plan was always to come back home to the farm. So he moved back, and after the summer after he moved back, I moved here that fall. When you're driving, you probably notice a lot of people waving. The other great thing is it's a very safe community. Knowing that if your kid fell down and hurt themselves or somewhere, that somebody will probably step in and help them, and just that sense of community and knowing that they're going to belong to something larger than themselves.
On top of running the farm with her husband and raising her 2 young daughters, Kelsey has also taken on the responsibility of working as the Community Economic Development Officer for the town of Coronach and the rural municipality of Hart Butte.
So my position has a lot to do with obviously economic development work. So whether that's looking at new industries, trying to attract investment, lobbying the government, looking at ways we can bring funding into the community. The 2 big things that the community depends on are the Westmoreland coal mine and the Sask power plant. They've been the main economic drivers and job stability since the 70s or 80s.
Her goal? Reinvent Coronach itself before it's too late.
The federal government does not want coal being burned in this country anymore. So being federally mandated, there's really not a whole lot we can do.
With the closure of the Poplar River power plant in 2030, Coronach is set to lose 67% of its population.
We know people that have left already to, pursue other jobs or other opportunities, and we don't want don't want to see that, and we do want a good community for our kids to grow up.
When you don't have a population to support the businesses that are there, more people move away, because if you don't have a health center, if you don't have schools, you don't have a grocery store, you don't have a doctor to go see, or a place to go see a dentist, a place to pick up your prescriptions, and then that's how ghost towns happen.
Wishart. Not even a town in the legal definition. This place was once a hub for the farming families around it. Now it appears dormant and abandoned, a testament of the worst possible outcome for any small town.
I've been in this area for close to 30 years, raised my family here, and can't imagine living anywhere else. There wasn't a lot of need to have to leave the community to feel that your life was fulfilled.
Margot grew up in a small town in Manitoba and came to the Wishart area to work as a nurse. It's here she met her husband and started her family.
I guess it was probably what I was looking for, to meet someone from a small town similar to what I was used to, and that's kind of the life I was looking for. And I found it. That always kind of made me happy that you could walk uptown and see people and chat with them, and that isn't most of the time when you walk uptown now. There's not a vehicle on the street.
There was always something going on. We had homecomings, always with a pretty impressive parade that wound its way through town, up and down the streets, and so there was always activity here. Never a dull moment, so to speak. We still are quite comfortable in the home. The town is another story. The last year we curled was 16 years ago. There was no point in putting in ice since then because we had no more curlers. People had quit, moved out, gotten too old, what have you, passed on. And that's sad. There's always something happening. Whereas now there's rarely anything happening.
Wishart's fate was tied to the ground it was built on. Its location was its downfall. First, the rail line was cut for being non-essential. Then the elevators left. Farms became larger but were run with fewer people, which meant less customers to support the local businesses. And so the dominoes kept toppling down. A story that's all too common on the prairies, and for those in Coronach, one that's still being written.
Through the whole coal transition, these communities were once known as, the power supplier to the whole province, kind of, somewhat the hero doing all the work to make sure your lights stayed on, you had heat in the winter. And now with the whole conversation behind coal as dirty and not the right way of doing things, I think that's kind of affected our community pride. But there's still opportunities, there's still potential. I guess now the job is to kind of show the community and everybody else that. The future is uncertain. There's I'm not going to dispute that. That's the reality of it. At one point I did have somebody once tell me that I must have my rose-colored glasses on. But I'm ready to do the best I can. It kind of starts with the school, instilling that sense of community to our youth. They're part of something bigger, and that's really important. I want my kids to go to school in Coronach, where they're from. To me, that is important.
Everyone here in our town, I feel like, takes a lot of pride in Coronach, takes a lot of pride in the school, takes a lot of pride in their families and children, and you can see that everywhere you go. I would love to see that my kids can come back here and call this place home, and community. That's who we're leaving our legacy for. So, you know, if the school closes, I like most small towns, right, in rural Saskatchewan, the community kind of shuts down.
The school is tough to look at, for sure. We had, my kids had a lot of good years in that school, you know. It's very sad to see that. Not seeing the buses come into town, and that was a big hit on this town when the school closed. Not as many people coming in. That's when you started to notice it. It was just kind of a realization that things were declining.
Driving by that school is painful even today. At one point, our school population was over 400. Like 425 was probably the peak. 10 or 20 years later, it was 200, and that went downhill from there. It became a skeleton of what it had been.
After the school closed, the town began to lose its members, and it hasn't regained them since.
The young people don't have much choice but to move away for employment. So our average population is aging, and that's not going to change. So here we are, struggling to survive.
So at this point, Walter, would you describe Wishart as a ghost town?
Not quite. Not quite.
After years of having a decline of events around town, one place has begun slowly bringing people back together. And while the numbers are small, they are growing.
So there was a brief flurry of activity. And it also resulted in a few more rentals, like people coming in to rent it for a bowling party or a birthday party or a Christmas party. Especially around the Christmas holiday, there were several rentals, and that helped boost the income a bit. And so that's where it stands now. We're teetering between surviving and not surviving.
Does it give you a little bit of hope for this community?
In a way, yes. That's a little more of Wishart showing up. The spirit that they used to have, yeah.
And then they got it 5. I spread it up though.
355, you're pretty close to it.
It's not particularly brownie, I guess.
On an alternate day for us.
Some of them did not like him at all, but this is home. I can't really imagine what would have to happen to make me just kind of throw in the towel and say, this is it, I don't want to be here anymore. If the small towns don't survive, that whole being part of a community feeling, I think, kind of goes with it.
History is against Coronach's survival in almost every way possible. But they do have 8 years to prepare for the plant's closure, and the people ready to adapt for the future.
So not every community will survive something like coal transition. There has to be some strengths. You've got to have some resilience and people willing to fight for their community to keep it alive.
You know, small towns are kind of the heart of the province, I feel like, and is, you know, if they're lost and those people are lost, that's a big part of how the province was developed and came to be what it is today.
Kelsey and the rest of the economic development team is attempting to reinvent Coronach while there is still time, attracting investment, coordinating renewal projects, and pursuing every possible avenue before 67% of their population is forced to leave.
Well, I think if there's a lesson to be learned, it's that you always need to be diversifying. You have to be out there selling your community. I mean, that doesn't mean you're not in tune with the reality and knowing that people are potentially losing or may lose their jobs and stuff going in the future. But, you know, I guess it's, you do what you can. You know, in certain times, you do the best that you can and hope for a good outcome. I'll be here no matter, you know, what happens in the end. I want the best community possible to raise my family. Even though I'm not trained in economic development, I feel like it is one way for a small town that I could give back. People are key to everything.
My younger version of myself, I would have never seen myself here, right? And what I'm doing and where I'm living. I don't know what the next 8 years are going to bring. I hope that it is positive, and I am optimistic that it will be positive.
To me, it's heaven. I would never ever move back to a city, ever in my life.
With everything being said, will Coronach survive this?
Yeah, I definitely think Coronach will survive it. You know, it'll probably never be what it is today. But that doesn't mean it still can't be a good community for people to be a part of.